Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fabric Spotlight, a series of discussions on everything cloud, infrastructure, enterprise, and beyond. Today, it's my great pleasure to chat with Anshu Agarwal, CEO at Nimbella. I actually know Anshu from a while back. We worked together at a very successful startup, Ankina. So, Anshu, it's been a long time since we have caught up. So, welcome to the Spotlight series.
Thank you, Rajan. I really appreciate this opportunity to be here with you today.
So Anshu, it's from running marketing and product management at Ankina to being the CEO of your own startup, Nimbella. You've been through also successful startups earlier than that. So would like for you to take some time, discuss your personal journey and experiences about your career and what got you to Nimbella.
Sure, absolutely. Rajan, I was just reminded of an incident when I was working at Ankina, and you must remember that too. When I joined Ankina, we were Nokina. Okay.
Yeah.
And we had to change our name because one company contested that it's close to their name, and changing the name was no easy task. And I remember, although we didn't have much brand equity in the name, but it wasn't an easy task. And then we changed the name to Ankina, kept the meaning of the name same, the vision. Okay.
Yeah.
But we changed it to Ankina, and then we got another letter from a solar company which was similar. And I told you, Rajan, if I have to change the name again, I quit. And I didn't have to change the name because Juniper acquired us. So that's a very funny story that I remember working with you there. Okay, so you asked me a question about my background and my personal journey. So, as you know, I'm an engineer by background, and I come from a family of engineers and doctors. So I could have gone one of the two ways, like most educated Indian families, were gone became a doctor or an engineer. I chose engineering. Worked in research for several years. Wanted to learn different aspects of a company, so went through business school, and that was probably the best decision of my career. It launched my career in product and marketing, and then I joined a startup, and that was the best decision in that I made of joining what kind of company I want to work for. And since then, I've never gone back to large companies other than acquisitions. My most of my classmates from Kellogg Business School joined companies like Coca-Cola, Procter and Gamble, like brand marketing and all. But I was always interested in technology, so I stayed in the technology space, did product and marketing for technology companies, and all the startups that I joined, they all were acquired by quite large companies. And it was very nice. I mean, it has been a nice run joining a startup, becoming part of a big company. But somewhere I realized that I was never really executing on my own vision. I was executing on someone else's vision. So what I did was, 2 years ago, I started Nimbella with two other co-founders, and that's how I am now delivering on my own vision, and hopefully it will take us somewhere.
That's wonderful. Anshu, you have had a knack of joining successful startups, identifying good startups, and Ankina was also successful along the way. What were the attributes you think in yourself that allowed you to pick up these opportunities? And what caused these and what contributed to the success from your perspective? What is it that you brought to the startups that helped them succeed? Clearly, you had a major role in many of these startups. So uh, just talk a little bit about what it took.
So I picked the companies based on my expertise. So my domain expertise. As I said, I'm engineer by background. So technology, I need to love the product. Okay, so it was not a coincidence that I ended up working at Ankina. It was in video streaming, and I was doing CDN before that. So it was just like a natural extension. So I picked companies, and then I looked. I actually wanted to see what kind of leaders were running those companies, because it's very important to have a really good relationship with the leaders, and if you can believe in their vision, you can execute much better. So that's how I picked my companies. But the attributes that actually I feel have why I have been able to contribute to these companies are like persistence and authenticity. Actually, those are probably the most important attributes that have helped me in my career. And it is even more important now because starting a company, and I started Nimbella 2 years ago, is like raising a child where you cannot give up no matter how things are going. Okay. You have to try everything in your power to make it work, whether it requires pivoting, hiring people with different skill sets, or even going to different market. I mean, there are ups and downs everywhere in work and life, and we need to march through it. But I am cognizant of the fact that there are times that you have to cut your losses and move on, and that's something I'm very, very careful about. Not to just get wrapped up in my vision so much that don't realize that, is it the right bet that we are making. So persistence is very important, in my opinion. The next one I mentioned was the authenticity. And I really feel that it is one of the most important personal attribute that you can bring to the table, whether it is among your peers or subordinates or your bosses. Success as an entrepreneur is determined solely by the number of people who can trust you, who are willing to work with you, who can give you credit, give you money, and buy your products and services, and even help you during the difficult times when your company goes through. So, in my opinion, those two attributes, and there are many more, but I feel those two attributes have really, really helped me in choosing what kind of companies I work for, what leaders I work for, and actually making it successful.
That's nice. I mean, it is very important to set the culture of a company, and I'm sure with these two things, you must be setting quite a good culture at Nimbella. So, tell us a little bit about Nimbella. What is the vision for Nimbella? What market is addressing? What cost you to get it started? I know that you're somewhere in the serverless space, but I would like to get it in your own words.
Sure. So, Rajan, I mean, I've done mostly cloud computing companies. I spent 13 years in CDN companies, which I think in some way was the first cloud service, real cloud service, that was offered. And just like cloud is inevitable, serverless is also inevitable, in my opinion. Okay, so what made me start Nimbella was that I had already done CDN, which I considered the first generation of cloud computing, and then towards the tail end of CDN, what we felt was missing was compute. Okay, compute that you can do things at the edge, and the edge is constantly moving. So we have moved the edge completely from data center to wherever we are and wherever we end up with 5G. But the companies that never thought that will move to cloud now end up operating fully in the cloud. Okay. So similarly, I feel the companies will adopt the serverless computing paradigm because what it enables is it enables these enterprises to deliver value to their customers at the pace of innovation. And what I mean by that is you actually have no infrastructure burden at all if you adopt a serverless computing paradigm. Today's popular serverless frameworks are actually not doing it, not delivering to the pure serverless promise because they only do serverless compute. What we are doing at Nimbella is not just serverless compute, we are doing serverless compute, serverless storage and memory, and function to function networking, which enables any application to be written and run in a serverless manner. Okay. And the other thing that we have we think is very, very important is the developer experience. And because, developers are the king today. We used to say content is the king, but developer is the king today. And they don't like to be sold. They have to acquire the knowledge, hear from people, and all that. But more than 40% of the developers in the world have less than 3 years of experience. So the cloud has become more complex, and you need certification and stuff. But cloud should be accessible to all. What we have done is we made the developer experience so simple, so easy that anybody with any skill set can actually develop a cloud native application, and they are free from all the infrastructure burdens where they only focus on application logic and everything else is left to the platform.
That's interesting. I mean, you talked a lot about the cloud and how it should be easy to develop to the cloud. Given the COVID situation and other circumstances, do you see the enterprise adoption of cloud accelerating? I know we have been in this business long enough, both you and I. Do you still see resistance? Do you see hybrid cloud staying around, or do you think it's all going to be public clouds?
I think cloud has reached the sectors that never thought would be in the cloud. Okay, most enterprises who move into cloud will will move in the next 5 years or a little later, but it will happen. But I also feel that there always will be on premise, because I don't think on premise will ever go away, because for some regulated industries, lots of data and applications live on prem. So it's not just a security issue for these companies, but the applications that run on-prem, they are very integrated with each other, which makes it very infeasible for them to move into the cloud. And the latency it adds from going to the cloud, back home, back to the cloud, it makes it very, very difficult to move entire applications in the cloud. So although I am all gung-ho about the cloud adoption, I do realize that some of the workloads will always be on-prem. So hybrid cloud is going to live forever. I mean, we still have COBOL in the system. So I don't think it's going to go away. But I do see a movement, and that movement is modernization of on-prem. Okay, so even the on-prem behaves like cloud. So all the tools and services that are available in cloud are also available on-prem for a lot of the companies, and companies are making that leap to make that available for their developers. I'll give you an example. Serverless I mean, usually you can do serverless in the cloud, but for us, I mean, we get lots of inquiries about serverless on-prem because these companies want to offer serverless on-prem to their developers. And because we are a full stack solution, we can actually create a hybrid cloud situation where there's no difference. You can run on cloud or on-prem, the developers get the same experience.
I love the phrase modernization of on-prem. That will enable hybrid to stay around for a while. Along those lines, do you see security as an inhibitor for adoption still as a cloud, or is that's a battle that has already been won?
Oh, I don't think that battle is ever won. Security is actually an inhibitor and an enabler for both on cloud, both in cloud and on-prem. People are more scared of the cloud because it's something that is not in their control. On-prem, they feel is in their control. But from my experience, security issues, even on-prem, never go away. Okay, we are continuously, as I mentioned, we are continuously expanding the edge, and it increases the possibilities of doing new and interesting stuff. But as we expand, more and more devices get added, the attack surface keeps on increasing. Okay, but there are more opportunities to limit the attack surface also. So security is a horizontal, and it's needed for compute, storage, and network. So as long as we are innovating in any of these three dimensions, there's definitely a ton of innovation bound to happen in the security.
You know, yeah, along with innovation in security, you also had touched upon earlier upon edge cloud, and associated with that is 5G, which is coming along in there.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a lot of excitement in that space.
Mhm.
Uh, with your own background in CDN, now with Nimbella, what are your thoughts on the decentralization of infrastructure that is taking place? And the evolution, sometimes people call it near edge, far edge, however, but what is your view of where the market is heading?
Well, there's definitely a lot of excitement around edge, and 5G is an enabler of that, because the possibilities of new applications is endless. Okay, it's like you can create applications that weren't even possible to be done at the edge. Okay, coming from the CDN industry, as I mentioned, 13 years in CDN, I realized that there's only that much you can do with content. CDNs are mostly for static content, but what it did was it enhanced the performance of the websites and enabled businesses to handle load without breaking your bank. So again, the first indicator of a very successful cloud infrastructure. And the A- and AWS came in, and basically cloud computing became a complete reality. You could do endless things with limited investment in infrastructure. Okay, now we have reached a point where 5G is actually becoming a reality, and edge, as I mentioned earlier, has been shifting. So we used to say, hosting data center edge, then there's a little bit more close to the edge. Okay, and now then we used to call everything last mile. Now you can do very, very close to your edge device, and that is the edge. And there are reasons why there's momentum for this to succeed. The first thing is the speed. Okay, you don't have to haul back data to compute. Okay, you can actually do data processing at the edge. Okay, the second thing which I mentioned was, you had brought up, was security. Security is both an inhibitor and an enabler, but and it increases the attack surface, when you add more and more devices at the edge. But then you can even localize your attack surface because of the edge. Okay, so you are actually making attack even more localized, and attack surface more localized, so you actually can do really wonderful things with security and manage it locally there. The third thing, scalability. Cloud is inherently scalable, but this increases scalability even more. For example, I mean, if you think of it, I actually, before I went into CDN industry, Rajan, I did AI ML. Okay, when AI ML was just, we were making like little tiny bitty improvements, and the reason why we weren't making that much improvement was because of compute and data, because compute was so unavailable. I used to have Spark workstations, and I used to keep on running and run my model for 1 month, only to realize I made a mistake with my model. Okay, so lost 1 month completely. But compute made it possible to be able to do real AI and create meaningful applications from AI. Imagine you can run all this AI inference at the edge, and the kind of applications that you can do is just mind-boggling. Okay, and it really is exciting to me because I did my thesis in AI, so it's like, coming back after so many years, it just feels so great. And my current startup is in serverless space, and what serverless enables is also creating your architecture such that small the things can be computing in small functions at the edge. So it enables edge computing. Um, I mean, it greatly improves the performance of the application because you can do it at the edge. And just like in the entire history of computing, the distributed computing research model capacity as fixed, but time as unlimited. With serverless and edge, the time is limited, but the capacity is effectively infinite, and that inverts the equation completely. So I am just so bullish on this, and I believe that this opens up a new set of applications for us, uh, greatly.
Well, you preempted my next question. I was going to ask you about the relationship between serverless and edge, and you actually preempted that. That's very good. But I'm going to pivot a little bit away from technical discussions to a little bit more the fact that there has been a lot of talk about women entrepreneurs, about encouraging women entrepreneurs in the high tech business. It's a shame that there aren't more. There should be more. Um, how do you think it is playing out now? Do you see a concerted effort for the industry to realize there's a vast bank of talent to be tapped into? How do you think things are changing? And uh, from your vantage point as a successful woman entrepreneur, what do you see happening?
I think I think we collectively are making a lot of attempts to better support women entrepreneurs. So I give a shout out to everyone who is trying in this industry, and especially women in tech. I mean, it is impressive, but somewhere I feel we have stopped short. Okay, and talking from my own personal journey as a woman CEO, it is actually a very tough position, because if you are a woman founder but not the CEO, you actually have a easier time raising money than being a woman CEO and founder. Okay. And I saw it. I mean, I have raised money for 4 companies, Rajan, but I raised money as being part of an executive member of the team, not as a CEO. And I realized that it was different. It was really different. It's like there is this unconscious bias that you are falling prey to every time you're pitching. And you you can feel it in the questions that are being asked, because those questions are, even though they may not have any uh, it's not intentional, but it is trying to figure out, your commitment, because you are a woman CEO, whether you have more you have more responsibilities towards your family or towards your work. I mean, there's always that doubt, and so women are held at a higher bar than male CEO. I was not happy to see that, because having raised money 4 times for other companies, I just thought I would not be I wouldn't have to see that, but I did. And there are lots of women entrepreneur funds, only funds. So as I said, I mean, there's a lot of effort that's being made, but they are very small funds and smaller checks are written. So if you are looking to go big, it is still a challenge for a woman. And I don't think there is any silver bullet that can be done. Okay. And the reason is because everybody is making effort, but we as an industry has to kind of move on, and there is this unconscious bias. Even women have that unconscious bias towards women. So I'm not saying it's just men having unconscious bias, it's just everybody has that unconscious bias. But if the venture industry employs more women in the decision making, I think there will be diversity of opinion. Okay, it actually adds to that. But I also think, and this is kind of my own thinking. I mean, it's not validated into any kind of rationalization or anything, but I think if we can build a process that requires brutal honesty among all the venture partners to understand why they are saying no to a woman entrepreneur, okay, we can eliminate that unconscious bias. Okay, but that is has to be a concerted effort. The venture partners should realize that, because there is something like that, the realization of that, we need to put ourselves in this difficult position to figure out, why are we saying no? Is it something that is inherent in us, or is something wrong? I mean, there could be something wrong in the plan or anything. There could be anything. But we need that brutal honesty. And then the last thing I feel is, we talk about mentorship and all. Mentorship is great, okay, but I think women need sponsors and not just mentors. Okay, I really believe that women needs somebody like them to sponsor, put their thing on the line and say, I believe in this woman and she can deliver. Okay, and that's when we can make a change. But I also believe that time will change it, because I there is an interesting mind space experiment that I ran by my kids and I ran by younger generation, and realize they don't have that unconscious bias. Okay, so time will actually take that away completely, and so there's big hope. But we can accelerate this process, and we can accelerate by a couple of things that I said. It's just I think it's going to help.
Excellent. And Anshu, I certainly hope you have a trailblazing success to inspire other women entrepreneurs. And along these ways, you have had great successes. I know you have had a lot more successes than failures. Uh, you have founded and you've been part of founding startups. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs, be it women entrepreneurs or just entrepreneurs in general? What advice would you give to them?
Well, that is there's a lot of advice. I can go on forever, Raj. um, I mean, this is my first company that I have founded, so the jury is still out. But I'll still take the question and give my advice. Okay, I think the most important thing is founding team. Okay, you have to have a very solid founding team, and it is the most important ingredient in creating a successful company. Entrepreneurship is hard. So having the right co-founder who not only has the same passion and belief, who can complement your skills, who can challenge you and support you, may just make your journey easy and successful. There, I mean, we've seen that there are ups and downs constantly in this. And one thing, and the companies that I worked fortunately survived and thrived. Okay, but what actually really mattered was the founding team in all of them. They stuck together. Okay. The second thing I feel is, and I coming from product brand management, and I have to be in love with the product. Okay, and when you are in love with the product, you drink your own Kool-Aid. You think your product is the best, the competitor's product is not good, and you're just you're drinking your own Kool-Aid. So don't drink your own Kool-Aid. That would be my thing. Talk to your users and customers. And if but I do believe, if you don't believe in your product so much, you can't inspire your sales team, your engineering team. But that pitfall is also there, that you don't find any flaws. So talk as many users and customers. Give it for free, because if they cannot use it for free, they cannot pay and use it. Okay. um, the third thing I would say is, just like founding team is important, this team in general, knowing and empowering your team is very, very important. We are a broader team. The journey is hard, and it is impossible without the people you hire, because just the founding team cannot deliver. But the beauty of a startup, and that's why I like startups, I keep on going back to a startup, is you have the ability to get to know every single person, at least in the early phases of your company. Okay, just get to know them, empower them. People are so much more productive when they are valued and heard. Okay, and that's how I benefited in my career, in my first startup. That's how I felt. I feel everybody should feel that way, and they will do so much better. Okay. And there are many more things, but I think one more thing which is really, really important is cash. Because every startup fails without cash. Okay, cash is the king. Okay. It is taught to us in business school, but more than business school, I think you learn in life. Cash is the king. So watch your books. Don't overspend. When you raise money, there is this tendency to spend more. There is this tendency, oh, this campaign looks good, let's spend more on this campaign. But think that budget is always tight. Okay, is always tight, and work with that. Okay, because that's what makes or breaks a company. And if the budget is tight and you are trying things, fail fast. If you Because in this day and in today's world, you can actually try so many things, but have the guts to fail fast and move on, and not do the same thing over and over again, trying to expect a different result. So I really feel these things are really, really important. They seem like common sense, but we all fall victim to it when we are faced with it. I mean, when you have ton of cash, you end up spending more cash. But just keep on watching it as if it's your personal money, and just run the company like that.
I would agree with you a lot, Anshu, having been through multiple startups myself. As someone told me, startups, you've got to stay alive long enough to get lucky, where you can get to the right market. So, totally, I'm in sync with what you said. Thanks very much for your time. I'm sure our viewers enjoyed your perspective, and stay tuned for another Spotlight series coming up soon. Thanks again, Anshu.
Thank you, Rajan. Thank you for having me.